get into that, and then we'll end with a ghost story.
Yes, sir.
Because I have a spooky, scary skeleton one.
So since do you want to talk about your cryptids first, or do you want to talk about mine first?
Talk about yours first.
All right. So, Roland, the first one that we are going to talk about is one that's kind of close to home. The Jersey Devil.
That's definitely close to home.
Okay, so this is from NewJersey.gov. The legend of the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is said to roam the New Jersey Pinelands, and many people have told others of scary encounters on dark nights in the wilderness of the pines. Its screams are said to be quite chilling. The creature is believed to be the unwanted 13th child of Mother Leeds. According to those in the know, Mother Leeds, before the birth of her 13th child, declared that she wished the devil would take the child away after it was born. At birth,
Yeah,
the
because
child
it was
suddenly
before.
changed into the ugliest of creatures and flew away into the vast darkness of the Pinelands. It is reported that the Jersey Devil inhabits the eerie and misty wetland areas of the region, venturing out into the woodlands at night, seeking humans to scare away with his piercing screams and grotesque appearance. People have drawn lot ha, People have drawn lots of pictures of the Jersey Devil, including the one on this page. Many Many portray him with horns, a forked tail, and a body that is part man and mostly animal. The reason that there are so many versions of what he looks like may be because people are so scared by his ugliness when they see him that they run quickly to escape and don't get a really good look at him. At times, there are newspaper articles in southern New Jersey about the latest sighting of the Jersey Devil. Reports of hearing his screams have come even from people in cities near the Pinelands. Some in New Jersey now think that the Jersey Devil is the protector of the Pinelands who will not harm any humans who love this special area and try to protect it. Perhaps he's not such a bad guy after all. So, first of all, real or no?
No.
You don't think so?
I think that, yes, a deformed child was born in the Pinelands. Um, but that's pretty much it.
You think it's hysteria that people have?
I don't know necessarily about hysteria.
You think people are just making things up?
No, I think it just like as it passes through multiple people for different you know what I'm saying, like it's like, oh, they had this deformed child, and then like some other guy goes, this woman gave birth to a deformed child that looked like inhuman, and then another guy's like, he heard it from this guy who knew this guy who knew this guy who knew this guy who knew this guy's brother who knew this guy who knew this
Hmm.
guy who knew this guy who knew this guy whose best friend was his cousin in college. And he's like, yeah. So she gave birth to a demon.
Okay, so
And
you
then
think
that
that just
story,
by word of
I
mouth,
also I
things just
also think
spread?
it's a way to keep people out of the Pine Barrens from back in the day, because mobs used to run the Pine Barrens. They used to hide drugs, guns, money, and dead bodies in the Pine Barrens because no one could go back there, and
Yeah, I've heard about that.
because of the soil in the Pine Barrens, it breaks down material. Like, it's very acidic. The water is very acidic, so it breaks down material very fast. So they would bury bodies back there because they wouldn't be found.
Crazy.
So like the Atlantic City and like other Jersey mobs would like bring people back there. Now they could just use the Jersey Devil as a thing, and I think the sound wise could just be attributed to coyotes, wildcats, You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
I don't,
So
but however, there is like a church that's in the middle of the Pine Barrens that's abandoned, and like a cult ran it.
hmm.
Like that's a real thing that happened. There's also
So
the haunted highway of New Jersey.
this next one is fascinating. And this one is my favorite one. He's my favorite of all of the cryptids slash like, urban legends. Mothman, baby.
Yeah, Mothman's fucking
So,
cool.
what?
Mothman's cool, but he's kind of a dick.
All right. In mid-November 1966, in the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, two young couples fled the local woods claiming that they'd seen a terrifying creature. They recounted their story to the sheriff and reported that the entity looked human in most respects, except for its 10-foot wings and glowing red eyes. The local paper ran the story of the Mothman. Within a day or two, the whole town descended on the location where the creature was reported, toting guns and ready to hunt it down. They didn't find it, but they did spark a legend. How did the Mothman go from a local myth to an internationally recognized figure similar to Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster? Great question. I don't care about your name. Uh, I don't care. Initially, Gitter and his classmates were told that their capstone project had to cover non-human history. Okay. Unlike Bigfoot, the Mothman myth has a definitive start date and location. After the initial report by the two young couples, newspapers in the area began to run with the story. That was where Gitter began his research. Through his research, Gitter uncovered far more than the cryptid's origins. He found a snapshot of small town Americana built into the fabric of the myth. Um, okay, pollution. I don't. I need like actual. Oh, okay. But sightings in Point Pleasant stopped after a tragedy. In 1967, a year after the initial sighting, the Silver Bridge, a major route in and out of the town, collapsed, killing upwards of 40 people. Afterward, people began to claim that they had seen the Mothman standing on the bridge the day before, possibly as an omen of the disaster to come. Even so, the town has embraced its legend. The annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant draws in more tourists than the town's actual population. It also boasts a Mothman museum, and a statue of the figure stands prominently downtown. The history of the urban legend was fascinating for Gifter to uncover, but also made him ponder myths beyond their history. To be clear, I don't think that the Mothman's real, but I do think that there was a combination of motivators for people who report these sightings. There are people who saw something and it's unclear what they saw. I'm sure that there are people who report seeing these things for the um for the attention, and then there are people in between. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the motivators for the spread and incubation of this myth is the small town. Okay, so that is the origin of Mothman. So I have kind of always believed that, like, there might be a Mothman, but what do you think? Do you think that there is a Mothman or no?
I think if anything, the Mothman's an alien or an interdimensional being.
Yeah, like you were saying, because we were talking on the phone about this. So you're not you're not dismissing that there is like some sort of a Mothman outright?
No,
If so, then he has to be an extraterrestrial, right? Kind of like what you just said. Like he's got to be like some sort of an alien.
Not necessarily.
I mean, personally, Roland, I don't think hundreds of people would lie about seeing a creature standing on a bridge.
Yeah,
Like,
people could see so many things in the fact of hysteria.
the Mothman might be like a hysteria thing. It's possible. But those are my two cryptids. What are yours?
So I have two that aren't necessarily um like um they're not necessarily, I guess you could consider them cryptids.
Okay.
So I have the first one here, which is, hold on, let me just pull it up.
Word.
Share my screen. Bum. The Thunderbird.
Hmm.
And the reason I say I wouldn't even necessarily call it a cryptid is because I believe that the Thunderbird could just be legitimately a real thing. So
So
it's a supernatural bird-like spirit in Native American mythology that is a symbol of strength, power, and protection.
okay.
Right?
Oh, I've seen this before. Yeah.
So this is the Thunderbird. This is actually a famous picture of like, but I don't think it's legitimately real.
I've seen that picture.
Yeah. So the reason I just think that could be like a massive bird, or that's fake. But like either way, what I believe a thunderbird actually was is a pterodactyl or some sort of pterosaur. Because when there is a massive extinction like event, what usually survives those are aquatic animals and those that can fly.
Well, didn't wasn't it like proven that like dinosaurs lived on in like birds and such?
Yeah, but I'm talking like this, which actually looks very similar to those drawings.
Yeah, it does.
So I picked the Thunderbird slash pterodactyl because there is a couple interesting stories
Oh,
about them actually being alive. Not necessarily now, but that they were. So Native Americans would worship, like not worship, but believe this giant bird was a spirit, and these giant birds could destroy their towns. They could pick people up, take them away. They would their wing flaps could like destroy TPs and knock people down, which, yeah, these things are huge. It's believable, especially if it was a Quetzalcoatl, which is this guy, the biggest flying animal to ever exist.
massive.
And there's also Terror Bird. A Terror Bird is also one. So, like, boop, boop. Let me find that picture. That's compared to a human being. Get out of here, Google. No one cares. So, like, yeah, there's the Argentavis magnificens is the actual like Thunderbird, I believe, which is like the biggest eagle. It was like the something eagle, but it literally would like pick up early man and take them away. Quetzalcoatl is a reptile, but that's where birds came from. But Quetzalcoatl was freaking huge.
Those birds are those birds are huge.
Oh, hold on. It's not even.
What are they, like 30 feet tall or something?
Hold on. Share this tab instead. There you go.
Holy shit.
That's easier. So I personally think that with like all these tribes that have talked about these things existing and these things being this big and actually like picking people up, killing people, destroying small towns. Well, you wouldn't even call them a town at that point, but the natives feared it. And when there's again, like when there's a massive extinction level event, birds always survive and aquatic animals always survive. So what's interesting about this is there was a story of an Arizona or Nevada Native American tribe, and they actually killed like they had a skull of a pterodactyl, I believe. Now this was in the 1800s, so this was a long time ago, and it was like way back when that it actually happened because it was passed down to their leaders, right?
Right.
Apparently, this massive bird was coming and it would like take their children and their wives and like carry them off and devour them. And eventually, like the natives got sick and tired of it, so they all went up there and they fucking killed it and took its head. And this was before fossils were discovered or anything like that, which we now know that skull they had is a pterodactyl.
Wild.
Now, again, in 1866, I want to say, or 1886, something like that. There's another story of a schoolyard in the South. I think it was North Texas. Yeah, I think it was North Texas. Um, my dates could be off, but you could probably find it if you look it up. But there's a story of the kids were out in the schoolyard, and these two massive birds kept swooping down, like really close to the children. So the teachers were like freaking out. They got the kids inside. The birds were still circling like up above, and they described these birds as like reptilian, almost like dragons. They said, and the police actually got involved and shot at them, so they left. But in the police reports, they talk about them being reptilian in nature again before fossils were
Right.
discovered. So they called them like little dragons or something. They said these massive birds were pretty aggressive and that they were trying to like actually go down and like hurt the children. And then going forward, I just think it's really interesting because I don't see why they would ever die. Like they could easily just pick up and move to a location that suits their needs. Like I don't see how they necessarily had to die out. I mean, they might not be there now, be around now, but I just think it's cool to think about. And there's like
That
reports.
bird is fascinating.
There's like reports of them existing before we knew what they were.
So, is there anything about them now, or are they like gone now?
Well, I mean, no one's heard about them, but doesn't necessarily mean in the far off reaches of the world that crazy shit doesn't exist.
Okay,
There was
so
actually
just
there's actually a really interesting story about um one of the Chinese emperors at one point had his carriage pulled by giant lizards, which he called
what?
which he called dragons because they didn't have a term, and in the drawings of him, it's not like Triceratops or something like that, but it's it's like fuck, I forget the name of the dinosaur, but it's like a herbivore. So they started calling them dragons. There's also one of the Knights of the Round Table slaying a dragon, but in the depictions of the dragon, it looks like a Triceratops. And at that point in time, like the world was very warm. So we came up with the term dinosaur in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So what if their term for dinosaur was just dragon? Because there was still living dinosaurs around the planet.
Or what if what we know as dragons like evolved into dinosaurs, you know? And then like
No, like because they don't necessarily have to breathe fire. That could just be an interpretation. But
that's true.
every continent has a form of a dragon.
Well, it's kind of just like how the Bible's up for in interpretation too.
Exactly.
It's not like exactly the same thing, but like when 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 like people will say the sky was like on fire and like there was
Dude,
fire coming out of
dude,
clouds.
that's a whole other. That's a whole other Monday Night Mayhem.
I know.
Because
I'm just
I
saying
can
though.
get into all that about how the Great Flood actually happened, and that's why every religion has a Great Flood story and the story
You're
of
talking
sky
about
fire.
interpretation though. So like, I just wanted to say like
Yeah, but the sky being on
maybe
fire. The chariots of the gods was just fucking UFOs watching all this shit go down. Yeah, we can fucking talk about all that.
well, I'm thinking though like there 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 very well could like I mean, yeah, like maybe dinosaurs were just what like we know to be
Yeah,
like dragons. It's
but
definitely
yeah,
possible.
we came up with that name, but what if their name for dinosaur was just dragon?
Right.
And
Yeah.
because it was lost in translation through the years, we assumed dragons are something different. And then we found fossils of dinosaurs and we're like, well, we can't call them dragons. So we're going to call them dinosaurs. You know what I'm
I never
saying?
thought of it in that way.
You
I
know what
never
I'm
thought of it
saying?
in that way.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying humans were around at the same time as dinosaurs. I'm just saying it's really interesting when you think of it that way.
Well, wasn't there evidence that there was like cavemen around during that time?
Not concrete, but there is evidence that we go back a lot farther than we think. But I'm not saying
Well,
that. Dude, there is a fucking living dinosaur by definition, quote unquote. Saltwater crocodiles.
are they officially like are they like a dinosaur?
No, but not technically speaking, but I mean, they're a prehistoric animal that's been around since the same time of the dinosaurs and they've never evolved.
Huh.
They're the same thing. They were exactly the same back then. There was more species of them back then.
So they didn't get wiped out
No, because
completely?
like I said, ocean animals. That's why people. That's why there's World War II stories of soldiers describing a mosasaur from battleships.
Yep.
Nazis and British Nazis and British alike both describing this mosasaur that they saw in the middle of their fight because they sunk a Nazi U-boat and the boiler exploded and it caused this animal to fucking come out of the water and start writhing in the flame. And they described it as a mixture between a whale and an alligator or a crocodile, which is a mosasaur.
That's
And there's Nazi
crazy.
reports about it, and there's Allied reports about it.
So yeah, and they would not have been working on the same like reports. So they each had to have seen something, right?
Yeah, but they both
And
described an animal that wasn't to our knowledge, didn't exist yet because we hadn't
right,
discovered a full fossil of a mosasaur yet. We hadn't even discovered a mosasaur fossil yet.
and that was less than 100 years ago. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
so
80 years ago.
so the dinosaurs didn't fully die.
At
Just
least
like
the aquatic ones didn't.
it was just all of the land ones.
Not necessarily because there's like pictures of this freaking emperor. Well, not pictures, but drawings of this emperor with his chariot being led by like giant reptiles. Like, who the fuck knows, dude?
Yeah.
It's just something interesting to think about. But on that same topic, my other cryptid is the giant snake in the Congo.
The what?
The giant snake in the Congo.
All right. When you say giant, how big are we talking here?
I'm showing you a picture. Hold up. Hold up. So yeah, if anybody here is interested in cryptids, you've probably heard about this before. Tales about enormous snakes are very frequent throughout South America and Africa. These assertions, however, aren't viable in an encounter chronicled in 1959 by a helicopter pilot flying through the Congo region. Colonel Remy Van
Okay.
Leerd, 14th of August, 1915, the 8th of June to 1990, when he died, was a Belgian pilot who served during World War II in the Belgian and British Air Forces, shooting down 6 enemy aircraft and 44 V-1 flying rockets, and achieving the RAF rank of squadron leader. In 1958, he became one of the first Belgians to break the sound barrier while test flying a Hawker Hunter at Dunsfold Aerodrome in England as Lieutenant Colonel Van Leerd. He is made Deputy Chief of Staff to the Minister of Defense in 1953, and he is considered a hero of World War II and a flying ace. In 1959, as full colonel, he commanded the airbase at Kamina in the African Congo, which, by the way, we still have so much of the Congo that's undiscovered. While there, in the Katanga region of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, while returning from a mission by helicopter, he encountered a giant Congo snake emerging from a hole as he flew over the forest, describing the snake as being close to 25 feet in length, earning its place among the largest snakes ever reported. Upon the incredible discovery, he then turned around and made several passes over the snake at a lower altitude in order to allow another person on board to photograph the creature, which is right there. Upon the incredible,
Wow.
yeah, Van Leerd claims that he flew lower for a closer inspection. The snake rose up approximately 10 feet, giving the impression it would have attacked the helicopter if it had been within striking range. I feel
Wow.
convinced if I had been in its range, it would have struck me, Colonel Leard confessed. He later described the giant snake as having a dark shade of green and a brown and white colored belly, and claimed the snake's head was 3 feet wide and that the jaws were of the triangular shape.
Wow.
He's describing an anaconda, by the way.
I
The,
know that, but like
the Colonel has a
from how
wiki
it's
page that touches upon the account. Van Leerd is considered a reliable eyewitness, and his testimony is convincing. His depiction is very realistic and familiar to snake experts. On an episode of Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World entitled Dragons, Dinosaurs, and Giant Snakes, Van Leerd claimed it could have easily eaten up a man. Multiple experts and zoologists analyzed several of his pictures of the giant Congo snake and have verified them as authentic. They verified the size of the serpent by comparison analysis to the ground features around the snake. According to Colonel Leard's report, when he lowered the helicopter for a closer look, the snake raised 10 feet in the air, and he was able to get a good view of the coloring, which leads many people to believe it could have been an anaconda. Now, let me find the exact picture again. We'll go this way. Here we go. Images.
Oh my god.
So that's the snake.
That thing's massive.
And then we got, just let me look this up. Titanoboa, which did exist, is about that big compared to a person. Where the heck did my
God. Oh wow.
which that's a fossil of Titan. Well, not a fossil, but that's a recreation of Titanoboa.
So they would eat us, basically.
Oh, easily. Anacondas can eat people,
Yeah.
but
So did
Titanoboa is believed to just be a massive anaconda.
the anacondas evolve from this guy then?
Yes, likely. A lot of snakes evolved from Titanoboa, but Titanoboa was thought to be extinct. However, many people don't think it is. Here's a skeleton of it.
That thing's massive.
Yeah, you can just tell. I think it's huge. Now, here's the interesting thing. Let me stop sharing this for a minute. I also have this on top of that, which I was just talking about. Computer. I was just talking about this the other day.
I hate computers.
I hate computers. Have you ever had a computer just not do what you wanted it to do? If so, then you might have Burger King foot lettuce.
Yo, you actually do. A really good chills.
Now, isn't that scary? Every sentence sounds like a question with him.
You know that's like his real life voice too, though, right? Like
Yeah, no,
that's how
I
he actually
know.
talks.
I know. So this is from Reuters. February 29th, researchers in the Amazon have discovered the world's largest snake species, an enormous green anaconda, in Ecuador's
What?
rainforest that split off from its closest relatives. This was just this year.
The Titanoboa?
A video shared online shows the scale of these 20-foot long, 6.1-meter reptiles as one of the researchers, Dutch biologist Freek Vonk, swims alongside a giant 200-kilo, 441-pound specimen. It was
That's
thought there was only one
insane.
species of green anaconda in the wild, the Eunectes murinus, but the scientific journal Diversity this month revealed that the new northern green anaconda belongs to a different new species, Eunectes akiyama. What we were there to do was use the anacondas as an indicator species for what kind of damage is being done by the oil spills that are plaguing the Yasuni in Ecuador, because the oil extraction is absolutely out of control, researcher Brian G. Fry said. Fry, an Australian professor of biology at the University of Queensland, who for almost 20 years has been investigating anaconda species found in South America, told Reuters the discovery allows them to show the two species split from each other almost 10 million years ago. But the really amazing part was, despite the genetic difference and despite their long period of divergence, the two animals are completely identical. However, although green anaconda snakes are very similar visually, there is a genetic difference of 5.5%, which surprised the scientists. Which, yeah, it is an incredible amount of genetic difference, particularly when you put it in the context that we're only 2% different from chimpanzees. Anacondas are incredibly useful sources. Yes, yes, yes. Some of the snakes they studied in parts of Ecuador. This is not the one where they actually talk about. Apparently, they didn't talk about the size and the fact that the scientist. Maybe it's in the video, which I'm not going to click on. But 20-foot long anaconda, and when they tested its scales to do like aging on it,
Right.
they think it's a juvenile.
A juvenile?
They think it's a juvenile.
So
So it's still a teenager.
they think it's still a child snake?
Yes, at 20 feet long.
How much bigger can that thing get then?
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
You
I
have a
have a
snake.
snake. I
How
have a
fast
snake.
do snakes grow?
There's a snake in my store. He's he's 4 years about 4 years old, and he's 12 feet long.
Wow.
He's a reticulated python. Now,
Is he gonna keep growing?
not much more. Maybe like 16
Oh, okay.
foot. He's a big old sweetheart, though. But that's not the point. The point is, this thing is a juvenile still. My snake is considered a juvenile at 2 years old, and she's like 3 foot. Well, technically, she's an adult, but she's still like small. Like a juvenile of her would be, depending on who you ask, a juvenile of her would be like maybe a foot long.
Hmm.
Maybe. This thing is considered a juvenile, and it's 20 feet long.
My God.
That's
So
as long
that thing's gonna get
as
massive.
a school bus, dude.
That
Almost.
thing's gonna get massive.
Yeah.
Well, there's something that on a
So,
future
so Titanic
Monday Night
is
Mayhem.
real.
Hi, Ronnie. On a future Monday Night Mayhem, I really want to get into giants and how like they were like giant creatures, but like, you know, all I'll say now is that like imagine back in the day when like all creatures were like massive. The fact that we're even having a conversation about like, 20-foot long snakes would have been like nothing then because like everything would have been huge. Things have shrunk in size for like, whatever reason, whether it be like lack of food or just the creatures having to evolve, which is crazy that like, they can even do that. But yeah, I mean, things have shrunk in size, but like this snake back in like the day of the giants would have just been nothing. But the fact that this thing's gonna probably get to what, like 25 feet long, 30
Yeah,
feet
but
long,
it's a
is
completely different species of anaconda, and it is exactly what um, Colonel Van Leer described.
there's no way
And
that it's the same exact snake, right?
no, no way. But he described a 25-foot snake. This one's 20 feet.
Yeah. Crazy.
I think it's massive. I'll see if I can find a
And
picture of the guy swimming with it.
dude, a 25-foot long snake is crazy. I get scared if I see a garden snake. That's wild. But yeah, nah, dude, thank you for showing me those. The, those are fascinating. Those are fascinating creatures.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
So, so, what are your scary stories?
Hold on. Yeah, I found a picture. It's not like I don't think it's the same one though. But I found a picture of a big ass anaconda.
Oh, word. Is it from the Nicki Minaj song or?
Shut the fuck up.
Holy!
There's a dude swimming with it.
That thing is massive.
His head's